exactly, what kind of vertices you're affecting, where the influence of the brush is. Really pretty awesome stuff in here. By the way, the guy that developed all these features is the same guy that developed all these models that you're seeing. So he's like an exceptional artist and a kick-ass developer, which is pretty amazing. Lots of masking features. So a couple examples of those. You could do mask expand by curvature. So follow the curves of your model to do your masking. You can do things like masking extract. So you could pick a part of your model and then almost do an inflate. It's kind of like solidify almost for sculpting. Good for adding clothing, things like that. We got a load of new tools, right? So new pose tools, all sorts of new deform tools. So like an example of that would be the grab, elastic grab, where you can just kind of grab and manipulate your sculpt, or things like deform scale, which is super handy. There's also transform tools. So if you don't want to build a whole rig out, but you want to pose your character, you could use masks and then kind of play around with it, which is pretty cool. There's some neat remeshing tools. So we were actually talking about this right before we got kicked off. So there's an open VDB voxel tool. By the way, I think now's about the time when we sort of fire up Blender and take a look. So I hate to get too far into the meeting without actually like taking a look at a Blender. Otherwise, it all starts feeling too academic. So while that's coming up, yeah, so there's two kinds of remeshing. So there's voxel remeshing, which is allows you to kind of slam together a bunch of primitive shapes and then remesh the whole thing based on volume, and it merges all those together. So it creates a great base for you to start sculpting from. And along the, hey, welcome. And along the lines of trying to do retopo, yeah, my antivirus likes to think Blender is a virus. Here, I'll maybe open up a model. So Quadraflow is pretty good. It'll create a fully quad-based mesh, so it's kind of more what you do towards the end of your creation. But there are some better commercial tools that we'll be going over in just a moment. Let's see, what else? So NVIDIA RTX support. So this got a lot of buzz at SIGGRAPH. So what you're seeing here, so the new NVIDIA GPUs have a set of dedicated ray tracing cores on them, and they refer to it as RTX. So what you're seeing here, like some standard Blender testing, the, let's see, the pink is CPU, the gray is CUDA, which is kind of traditionally how you do GPU accelerated stuff on NVIDIA. And then the green is using optics, which is their new ray trace core. As you can see, there's like a really significant, this is like it's like twice as fast, basically, for some model types. Hey, welcome, go on in. So we have open image denoise, which is our AI machine learning based denoiser. So I won't talk about that because we're going to cover that later. Some really awesome cycles features. So this is Blender. So this is actually the splash screen for Blender. And let's see if I can kind of show you some of these features. Let's go like, let's take the resolution way down. And maybe set the samples down. Yeah. I wish I did. No, it does a NVIDIA GPU, but no RTX. So I'll just kind of, yeah, there's RTX laptops now. This laptop's kind of a little long in the tooth. So it may take some time. I'll maybe show these in just a minute. But basically, you can actually look at preview passes in the viewport. So if you pull down the rendered button up here, you get this like, you can look at diffuse indirect, diffuse glossy direct, ambient occlusion, normals. It's really cool. And in fact, there's a patch where you could start to do denoising in the viewport as well, which is even cooler. But yeah, if you're trying to figure out where those fireflies are coming from, it's super handy. The problem is it re-renders each time you pick a different view, which is kind of unfortunate. But so there's a lot of new shader nodes for both Eevee and Cycles. If you're unfamiliar, Cycles is the ray trace render in Blender. Eevee is the real-time PBR render. We probably won't be going into too much of that, but this is an example of some of the Eevee improvements. So there's fewer shadow artifacts. Actually, what is this? Reduced shadow terminator artifacts for bump mapping with diffuse PSDFs. That's really specific. I don't know. I'm assuming that's Eevee. I'm pretty sure that's Eevee. So they improved the soft shadows, volumetrics, bump mapping is a lot more realistic. There's grease pencil, new brushes. There's a new soft overlap. So when you're drawing using kind of pens, hey, I didn't see you sneak in. It doesn't necessarily overlap, so it looks a lot better. You can do isometric stuff. So there's some nice kind of UI features to Grease Pencil. If you're not familiar with Grease Pencil, it's a 2D drawing. Well, it's 2D strokes in a 3D environment for doing kind of 2D animation typically. But they've improved the UI so you can kind of fade objects out in your scene, except the one that you're working on, so you don't get too distracted. It's a new file browser, which pretty cool. Was new outliner, which is really amazing, which I'm not going to get into too much on because Gary's going to present that later. And then transform and snapping, same again. So they've made some improvements to polybuild, which as far as I don't really use this tool, but as far as I can tell, it's mostly beneficial for retopology. So it's kind of a click-based add quads when you're working on your model to retopo. And it's got some smart selection on it. Let's see, what else? Library overrides. This is a really big deal if you're into animation. So previously, we had a proxy system in Blender, and if you're managing kind of large scenes, a large animated scene, you're usually using multiple Blender files, and you're importing assets into your scene as you're linking to assets into your scene. And library overrides allows you to modify those assets once they're in your scene, so they're no longer just read-only. And lots of stuff in the viewport. So I'm not gonna sort of belabor this. There's a batch rename feature, which is really handy. So, if you have like a lot of different meshes and you want to do kind of a group rename, hey, welcome. You can actually do Control F2. Let's see if we can expand one of these. I probably picked like the heaviest scene possible to demo here on this laptop. I tell you what, let me open something a little bit more modest. Yeah, that's a demo file. It's freely available for download off of. That's exactly right. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we could open something here without. His name is actually down on the bottom of on the bottom right-hand corner of the splash screen. It was only as well as his URL. Come on, baby, come back to me. All right. Anyways, if you hit Control F2 in your outliner, you can actually do a batch rename on objects, which is really neat. You can do like find and replace, just like you can do in word processing stuff, and lots more. I mean, they made Alembic import-export improvements, FBX import-export improvements. GLTF has been improved. So lots of good stuff in here. All right, so we're doing on time. All right, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. So since our last meeting, there's been a lot of stuff that happened. So obviously there's no way to recap everything that's happened in the Blender world, but I'll just run through some highlights. So we have, I forgot, I'm on camera here. So we have Epic Games gave Blender $1.2 million to do with what they like, which is fantastic. So they're just investing it into more development of the application. In addition, Ubisoft, NVIDIA, AMD, Embark Studios, and so forth, they all joined the development fund, which means more developers, which means better features for us, which is great. Blender's been messing around with universal scene description. So if you attended SIGGRAPH last year, oh my gosh, come back to me, Blender. All right, let me just do this. I'll let that sit there for a while. So if you attended SIGGRAPH, you probably know that USD is a really big deal for just about any digital content creation package. Everybody's starting to support it. It's an open spec that was, I think, published by Pixar, if I'm not mistaken. So we're starting to see development of that in Blender. In addition, eCycles is committed to delivering patches in 2020, which is right around the corner. So eCycles is a version of the Cycles render engine that's incredibly fast. And right now, the developer's charging for it, but it's also open source. So you can get it off his GitHub, or if you feel like donating to him, which I recommend, go grab it. And ultimately, those features will make it into Blender. Also, Unreal, Epic Games, which makes the Unreal Engine, has purchased Quixel, which, if you don't know who Quixel is, yeah, that's big news. Quixel makes a product called Megascans, which is basically a huge texture library of mostly kind of nature, organic stuff like rocks and trees and plants and this sort of thing. And they've made that available for free to users of the Unreal Engine. So a lot of our Blender users actually use Blender to create scenes in Unreal, so you can put on your VR glasses or play games or whatever. So all of those assets are available for free, and it's pretty incredible. They're super high resolution. They're used by game studios and movies like this. So they also make a tool called Bridge, which imports those seamlessly into Blender, and a tool called Mixer, which allows you to take those and then mix them together to create new, totally unique textures. So yeah, I recommend you check it out. I've got a demo scene if we have enough time today. Let's see.
Good question.
Yeah.
So Bridge and Mixer, like prior to this, there was some sort of like licensing.
Correct.
Like the more assets you get, the more you pay.
Correct.
Is that now used on the exact sort of new?
Yeah. It is giving it away.
So everything is kind of just free.
Correct. And the trick with the license there is it's meant license-wise for use with Unreal, right? So usually in my news roundup, I like to have at least one kind of ridiculous story. So this is my one ridiculous story. Somebody built a teeny tiny Raspberry Pi to run Blender in. Yeah, I don't know. But there's Blender running on the world's tiniest computer. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we don't know how well it runs, but apparently it runs.
Because I ran it on the burner because I ran it on Raspberry Pi 4 and runs great.
Yeah.
But that one's like warm.
Okay. So just to demo the quad remesher. So here's a standard text object, right? Every time you create one of these, typically, Blender hotkeys, invert. So typically what you do is you convert one of these to mesh, and then you look at your mesh. Did I? Oh, bugger. Thanks, guys. Let me undo. Let me try that again. Convert to mesh. Thanks. So typically you look at that and you're like, oh my God, my topology is horrible. So a couple different things you can do, right? You can come down in here to your mesh data, and then we have this remesh option, right? And you have two different options here. Voxel is if you wanted to sculpt on it, it would kind of create a mesh, a pretty high density mesh, lots of verts to prepare you for sculpting, or you can go with quad. Sorry, let me get into object mode, and you have a couple of options here, and okay, it's failing. I actually saw this earlier this morning. I'm not sure why it's failing on this particular mesh, but my favorite is to use a different tool, which appears to be disabled. I'm sorry? Uh,
Running ZBrush?
yeah, right. Well, yeah. Well, actually, along those lines, so quad. So this tool is called Quad Remesher. It's actually from the guy that wrote the Quad Remesher for ZBrush. So we take this horribly topologized text, and we just go with defaults and click remesh it. You'll see down on the bottom there's a progress bar, and then it's done. And if you look at it, it's like perfectly meshed into quads. And it's I found that the tool, I've used it on a bunch of old models that I made before I really knew about topology, and it's really good. So it figures out edge flow. There's a couple different ways. Hi, welcome. There's a couple different ways you can give it hints on how to follow edge flow, and so yeah, really nice tool. Highly recommend it. 60 bucks from the developer. So yeah, I recommend we'll support him. Let's see. So what else? So there's I mentioned the Blender Today Live, by the way, if you want to keep up to date on Blender, there's a YouTube channel that's really good. It's like every week they explain what's new in Blender and in development. All of the typical cast of characters that do rendering for Blender now have 2.8 versions. So Octane, AMD Pro Render, LuxCore, and so forth. Let's see. There's a whole bunch of add-ons I'll probably skip in the interest of time. But some of these are some really high quality add-ons. If you've never seen them before, there's add-ons for creating trees. There's add-ons for creating whole cities. There's add-ons for baking. There's a bunch of open source tools that are kind of making the rounds for developing textures. So Material Maker is one of those. So it's a node-based material map developer. So here's the Grove. If you haven't seen this before, it creates trees. Creates some really nice looking trees. This was used for movies like Next Gen. Then we have Scene City. This is an add-on that literally creates whole entire cities for you, along with all the landscaping that goes around them. So Material Maker was the open source tool I talked about. I think it's a little bit on low on the maturity curve, but people have hopes that it'll get developed, and we've got something called Armory Paint as well, which is also so Material Maker, I guess, would be like the very startings of maybe a substance painter, a substance developer, substance designer. Thank you. And an Armory Paint would be, gosh, what would you use to like paint on 3D models? It would be like a painter, I guess. There's another tool I'm thinking of. I can't. Sorry. Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking of. So, anyways, check them out. There's a Godot, which is an open source game engine, just released new versions. Zenko Game Engine is a brand new open source game engine that just came out. NASA released a whole bunch of maps for doing lunar maps. It's pretty cool. So these are moon maps that are taken from actual spacecraft that have been photographing in high resolution the surface of the moon, and they released these specifically for 3D artists. So there's like color maps and displacement maps. I did a quick test here. Let's see. Just to see what it would look like. So let's go ahead and fire up Eevee. So it'll just take a moment to render. And it's pretty darn cool to be able to have like a high resolution moon kind of cruise around in your viewport. Totally accurate. I went a little extra step and actually over here in the shading tab. So this is just what the shader looks like, but let's see, if we go to the world shader, you just, there's a trick where you can add a little noise texture, and that'll actually give you stars. So there you go. Moon and stars in like 20 minutes or less. Yeah, you can actually find the moon landing on this. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So, okay. So keep going. So if you're new to Blender 2.81 and you want a better overview than what I've just given you, there's a really excellent overview by CG Cookie. They do like a 1.5-hour live stream. It's recorded. It's on their site. It comes with a page if you feel like reading about features instead, but it goes into depth. He demonstrates almost every single one of these features. So by all means, I recommend you check it out. Wow. And this is it here. So, this is, so it sort of goes into every single one of these, and you can check it out at your leisure. Blender conference happened. We're going to be talking about that later, but the Blender conference recordings are up on YouTube. You can literally watch every single one of them. I binge watch it the weekend it comes out. There's a whole bunch of courses also up on the Blender Cloud, like stylized character workflow. There's a new one called Animation Fundamentals. There's another one called Anglerfish. Yeah, but it's some really, really neat stuff. So if you're not familiar with Blender Cloud, you can pay like a monthly subscription. I think I pay like, I don't know, like $12 a month or something. Is it 10? Right, and that money goes to Blender developers who then give you more features. So it's really a really nice thing. I strongly encourage everybody to
Yeah, fun stuff on there, like all their assets.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so I'm running a little over schedule. So who here has been following Nodevember? Yeah? Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with what Nodevember is, it's a yearly contest where throughout the month of November, each week or each day, I don't know, it's each day, there's a new topic and you have to only use nodes and simple primitives to create it. And it's astonishing what people create. So I'm just going to jump to their Twitter page real quick. We can take a look at one of these, like a couple of them. But it is like there are some true wizards and warlocks and witches out there creating stuff like all of these are done strictly with nodes, right? This is a holograph. There's like lava and material and space, all these animations, zippers. Yeah, and the great thing, look at this node setup. So the great thing is they share the nodes, right? So we all get to find out procedurally how they created all these things. But I'm starting to realize that my node skills are lacking in Kung Fu. Yeah, they're all. This guy created a snitch from the Harry Potter movies. But anyways, you can look at these all day. There's a really exciting. Okay, and I thought I'd just mention this as well. So hi, welcome. So Blender has a booth actually in Burbank this week at the CTN Animation Expo. So if you're interested in going to that and going to visit Blender, you can go see them there. Oh, cool. How was the event?
It's cool. Yeah, I checked out. They did the presentation on the frame.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. Okay, so at this point, I usually open it up to whatever else you guys have that you think we should know about. Any events, books, classes, features, stuff that we didn't cover here. Yep.
I'm trying to run a little, company here. It's really hard to keep it fun. How do you, is there a little like job boarding thing or, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I have to keep subscribing to mine because those are all the people I have. You can't afford the Houdini people, but
Yep, that's where I was going. So network.
Based through their Blender artists or whatever.
It's actually organized. Yeah, the same people that organize the Blender Foundation and all of that. Yeah, so you can search by city, by country, by skill. So if you're looking for Los Angeles people, this is a really great place to go. You know, there's a couple of kind of CG related job boards that if you come up and talk to me at a break, I can point you to that if you kind of put out an ad there.
It's been a little bit of a struggle to keep a blender.
So what kind of people are you looking for?
So we do a lot of car stuff. We have a contract coming up. Well, so we're ramping up or whatever, but for CarMax or whatever, we potentially might have to do every single car. But we might not. We might just like 8 or whatever, and just you know, they might go with somebody else or whatever.
Sure.
AR. It's kind of like Toyota's thing or whatever. So we're building a demo. That's what I'm thinking. Right now, the model is a new truck that just dropped. Yeah, I know that.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, no, good tip. Anything else from anyone? Any other stuff we should know about? All right, I'll leave it at that. So, so we have an option here. We can take a break, or we can keep going. How do you guys feel? You want a break? Okay, let's take a break. Yeah, it's a good time for a break. So, come back in 15 minutes, and we'll get kicked off. Thanks. Hopefully you saw your name out there. Okay.
Insert me into it, but it'll take a minute for me to get set up.
Okay.
And I need to share a screen with these guys. Is there any kind of software that I certainly need to have on my
yeah, so Zoom. So you want to connect. So if you go to our Meetup page, there's a URL for connecting to the Zoom meeting. And then once you're connected there. No, I'm cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Really fantastic talks about story.
Yeah, I saw those. They are cool. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's your favorite. That was your favorite session you saw at that conference, or? Yeah, they're great. I love Blender. Those talks are always so diverse. You know, people doing medical stuff. There's people doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Citywalk. That's weird. Yeah. I'm gonna go to like Apple.
I'm more excited. There was a really great
Oh, it's just Google search for Los Angeles Splendor 3D user group.
You try to show and then everyone will be like, yeah, I got this, I got this. And then you want to really find him a line and he's just like, like this. So you take a artist like that as it's hard to find that stuff.
I didn't even check the time when we went on break.
So I guess that's all I need.
Hey, Dave, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, so we've got another machine presenting here, so we're about to get kicked off. Can you do a sound? Can you hear me?
Fantastic.
All right, guys, we're going to get started, so if everybody can take their seats. Go on in and take your seats. So the microphone's here and the speakers.
Okay, we'll try to be somewhat close to it.
Sure. And
Yeah, they should be on there.
as close as possible.
Yeah, cool.
All right, great. So we're going to go ahead and get kicked off here. So Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about what you're going to present on.
Of course. So my name is Matt Myers, and I'm here to talk about a set of add-ons that I'm currently prototypes I'm going to show you. I call it Conjure, and it looks to incorporate traditional modeling techniques with some machine learning techniques. So, yeah, it sounds like it.
Go up to the top of Zoom. Click audio once, and it'll mute it. Leave computer audio.
Okay, there we go. Is that? Welcome to my sweet presentation.
And Dave, you can still hear us?
Okay. Fantastic. All right, so this is a little intro, a little bit about me. My background, mechanical engineering. I've worked for 20 plus years in product development. First half of my career is at General Motors, designing cars. There's a few of the cars I worked on over there. And now I'm at Callaway Golf, and I work in their innovation department, designing golf clubs and getting a few patents for them. So when I started to put this together, I actually sat down and thought about my very first digital graphics package I worked on. It was back in 1984, and it was this program called Logo, where you get the little turtle graphic guy and you drop it down and tell it where to go. So I've been in computer graphics for 35 years, so I really like this stuff. So when I started to get into Blender, looking at it for modeling and rapid prototyping, I realized that I really like the sculpting features, and it kind of adds a different modeling flow to what I'm used to. So these are the traditional modeling methods that I've learned and been using over my career. So when you're designing parts, you have an overbuilt method where you're starting with a solid chunk of material, and you're creating Boolean operations to subtract or trim or unite to end up with your finished part. The second method you have is an exact method. So you design a bunch of sheets that you stitch them together in the end, and then you apply a thickness to it and you get your finished part. And then, of course, there's this sculpting and morphing method, which is like digital clay sculpting, right? So that's what Blender is really, really good at. And then in my other life, the CAD modeling is mostly the overbuilt and extract methods. So what I'm trying to do is to not create just repeat old CAD methods and use Blender and the Python API to just recreate CAD as it is, because I can just go get a seed of SolidWorks, or we use Unigraphics NX at Callaway. So I became really interested in the last year in a lot of these new cutting edge machine learning techniques, and to see how I could incorporate those into modeling. So I went to SIGGRAPH this year, and I sat in every single machine learning talk I could, and it just blew my mind. It was really neat. So I'm going to show you some of that stuff. I've tried to port some of those scripts into Blender and see where we go. So to give you a really high overview of machine learning for those that aren't familiar with it, there's three main areas of machine learning. You got unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. And so supervised learning is where you already know what the answer is. And actually, machine learning in general is you're training a computer. The computers are stupid. They don't know anything. They don't actually learn. You train them on data sets, and it makes probability predictions for future outcomes, right? So in supervised learning, you already know what the answer is. So if you're going to estimate the cost of a house, you have all this data of house sales, and so you know what the answer is, you can train it to figure out what you should sell your house for. Unsupervised learning is where you may not know what the answer is. So let's say you're doing marketing segmentation and you have all these customers, but you don't know how to segment what type of customers are what. And so you can put all that data in and it'll cluster and figure out who's what type of customer. And then you have reinforcement learning, which is like goal seeking. And so this is like game AI. So it knows how to get it. You tell it you want to get through this maze, but it doesn't necessarily know all the steps. So it figures out penalties and rewards to get to that maze. Okay, so that's kind of a high overview. And so there's a lot of hype about some of these things being so great. So I started to kind of pick through which ones would be most interesting to me and most applicable to modeling and idea generation in Blender. So there's an algorithm called YOLO. You only look once, and it's version 3 as the cutting edge one. And it's a classifier. And that's what this is over here. And what it does is it breaks your image down into a grid of, I don't know, it's like 13 squares. And it's trained on about 70 plus objects and thousands of pictures of these objects. And what it does is it tries to figure out the probability of that object being in that square on the grid when it looks at it. And so this is what a lot of like the self-driving cars or like the cameras in, Hong Kong are looking at people's faces and recognizing, it's a person or whatever. This is what that does. Another algorithm I'm looking at is this style transfer and this generative adaptive network. What it does is it takes it's a neural network that takes 2 images and you tell it which one's a content image, which one's a style image, and it breaks down the pixels in it based on if it's content to kind of create the structure or the skeleton for what the new image is going to be, and then it takes the style, the color, and the textures from the other one and builds them back into a new image. So I just took a portrait and a Salvador Dali thing, and then it created so it kept the structure of it, but the art. And then of course this one, PoseNet. This is a Google open source, I think it's open source code that tries to look at images and figure out the probability of where the joints are. It works really well. It's really trained on people. So, okay, so like I said, there's a little bit of hype to it, right? So, and I went to SIGGRAPH, and NVIDIA was promoting this this website that trains their generative adaptive network, where you can just sketch an image on a page and you tell it what those pixels are, and then it tries to create a photorealistic picture next to it. And so this I made is a house on a lake with a couple trees and a fence. And it suddenly decided that that house needed to have 3 green doors in the front, and it looks like a place somebody'd be murdered at. It's kind of scary. This right here is a pretty famous one a year or so ago. It's a celebrity A data set, and it creates fake faces. So it's on Facebook, I think, a director of AI created this data set of hundreds of thousands of celebrity faces, and then it creates it has a network that tries to create a fake face and then pass it off as a real face to another algorithm, and it keeps going until it actually passes the test. And so all these are fake. However, that one is scary as hell. I don't know what that is. Okay, so then sometimes it's pretty cool, right? That works.
Are you having that window actually made?
Would you like? That's just yeah, that's good. All right. So this is like when I started to break down like my workflow, my product workflow, right? So I'm a terrible artist, but I'll take graphic design sketches, import them into my CAD system, and then scale them or pull data off of that to create points and then curves, and then obviously, from curves to surfaces to the actual part. So I'm looking at algorithms that will meet each one of these goals and make my life easier. So there is a Python library called OpenCV that will look at images and pull edge. It's an edge detector, and you can pull data off of that. So I'll show you that, and I have a demo for that in a minute. And then some curve fitting stuff that I've worked on. I haven't built up yet past year inside of Blender, I realized watching lots of YouTube videos to teach myself Python is not the best way. So I've actually re-enrolled in school in both machine learning and Python at UCSD. And I'm currently in that for the next year here because I really like this stuff. So with that, we can do some demos. Okay, so let's see first. Okay, so this one is to demonstrate the YOLO algorithm, right? So I have some images that I've pulled in, and these are all the categories that the YOLO database is currently trained in. Now I could go out there and train it on new data sets, but it's a massive amount of work right now. So this is kind of what we're working on. So if I just leave this and say, okay, out of all these classes that are in here right now, oops, select an object. It's going to run the algorithm, and it's going to put boxes up around the images that it found. So here's what it found. I've noticed it's trained really well for traffic scenes, right? So it knows that 100% that's a traffic light, and then these are all the probabilities of what it found, right? So it's got people walking across the street, cars. It's kind of neat. All right. See, it's also trained for lots of household items. So in this case, I changed the algorithm so it won't just show me everything. I can pick what I want. So let's say I know there's a sink in here, and it's trained on, where are you? There it is. All right, sink. So show me the sink. All right, that's pretty cool. Found both sinks. All right, so let's see where this thing may not solve all the world's problems, right? So got a snowboarding picture over here, and okay, so show me snow. Yep, thank you. So show me the snowboards. Okay. So it got mine pretty good. It got half of Nisa's here, and poor Mateo, he's not riding a snowboard at all. And then it missed all these back here. So it's not perfect, right? I mean, especially with one image. But okay, so I found out that I noticed reading through it that it's trained in pizza and beer, right? So show me pizza and beer. Okay, apparently that's a cell phone. And that's a banana. So we got some work to do, right? I'm not going to sell a farm for this one. Okay, but it's going to get better, right? Over time, the more data that's trained on these things, it's going to get really, really cool. So not to discount it too much, although it's funny when it does fail. So I'm trying to think about this. How would I use this in Blender, right? So let's say that I'm given point cloud data, and that's just dumb data. It doesn't know what anything is, but so I took this with my iPhone around my kitchen countertop, and it does. I noticed it's trained in all these fruits, vegetables. So this is a point cloud data, and what I'm going to do is create that so it actually looks at it from different angles, so it gets more than one picture. Because I noticed when you do video, it's better at picking out things because it might come out of frame or in and out of frame. So given this 3D, why not say, all right, well, I want you to show me the broccoli in this, right? And then, boom, it finds it in 3D space, right? And then how about you isolate it from there? And now I can do something with it. Well, okay, I showed you that PoseNet thing earlier, right? Well, why not create a bunch of things that are verbs, action items, right? And say, all right, I want you to apply a rig to this. Now do something, right? So broccoli, I want you to blast off and bye. Right? That's that one. All right, so next algorithm is the style transfer. And now I'm not a great texture artist by any means. That node members thing blows my mind, what people can do with these things. But I see that style transfer might be a neat way to incorporate that algorithm. So when this comes up, all right. So I got this off blend swap. This is just some, character with the unwraps maps, right? So. Oh, it's gonna get worse. Enjoy sleep, trying to sleep tonight after this, right? So, all right. Now, I've got this guy's face, right? And say I want to, do it in a different artistic style, right? So, like I showed you before, it takes the content from one image and the style from another and merges them together. So it's not just like changing the shade or whatever, just like, making his face like mossy or turning into wood. It's actually taking the structure of it, and you'll see. So I took a few. So this one, there's a site called Deep Dream, and I got a link to it later in this that you can go to and mess around with it. That's where I use to create these textures. So this one is one of the least scary ones. So it took that guy's face, and it's like a Simpsons or whatever they call it. I don't know what it was, but you notice it still has the structure of it knew kind of like, just not to slap some weird shade over like the lips. It still outlined them and left his eyebrows in there. And then even his hairline is still part of that.
Are you using Meetup itself to do the style transfer? I'm just curious.
This?
Yeah.
So what I did was I took the UV map and I cut out that corner, and then I put it on that website with their style, and then I used Krita to paste it back in here real quick for this demo, because I'm not a great texture guy, just to show this how it worked. Yeah. That's what I did. Yep. So that's one example. Another one, and this was kind of neat. So I took a Roy Lichtenstein. Okay. So this was the painting, right, that this came from, and it's very distinct style. So that one. Okay. So again, notice it's kind of cool that it realized that, okay, the eyes are traced, right? So it actually kept that in the model. It's a completely, of course, it gave him like a crazy, weird yellow mustache beard thing. Okay, so these are style transfers, right? There's another one called, another algorithm called Deep Dream, and it operates on kind of a different principle. And I'm still kind of learning these things, where it takes certain features of the neural network and it amplifies them. And it creates some pretty weird stuff. So I took a leopard, just a single leopard image, just this, and I said, you know what? Do that to this guy's face. And oh, that's that one. Where you at? There it is. And so that's what it did. So he has leopard eyes all over his face. Okay. And do one more, and this one was kind of my favorite. So this is back to a style transfer, right? So I took gummy worms and said, all right, do your thing. And where are you? All right. Notice again, it kept the structure. It decided to give him an entire beard full of gummy bears or gummy worms. Yeah. And there's some neat things on that website too, where you can actually keep the color of your original image. So if you did like a normal map or something, it wouldn't necessarily skew how it's going to look. So that's something else to look into. That's as far as I've gone with that. Okay, so the last demo I want to show uses the edge detection and OpenCV library. So what I'm going to do is just open up, start from scratch. So this is more related to my current workflow for product design. So I'm going to make a new part. I'm sorry, save this. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so
one button press.
One day.
One that
Get out of here. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to look at modeling a Corvette 63 Corvette Stingray. So I've got reference images that I pulled off the internet, right? And you know, when you pull these things in, you want to get the best, you know, square, like front view, top view, left, right, side view to the car in this case, and then pull the data off of them or line it and scale it and line it up. So that's what this works to do. So.
Are they different size images?
Yep. So I created this, I call this Conjure Image Voodoo. And so what it does is it will go in here and it knows based on how you name it, front, top, whatever, to pull in those views, pull them in and put them in the correct view.
That's very useful.
Yeah. I currently have the, I'll get to it in a minute. I have this available for download.
Yeah.
Skewing?
No, they are completely skewing. What do you mean?
Like if it's not on, like, is it flattening anything out?
No, it's just putting it in that orientation. So if I go to, you know, front view, this one, and it's called front, it knows, right? And so this is the first step, right? So, okay, great. I got these images in, but you can see they're all different scale, right? Okay, so I've created this right here, this dialog box. So I already know from looking online that the actual size, length of the Corvette, actually, this is in inches, so I gotta go change this to inches. Where are you at? Scene. Oh yeah. Thank you. Inches. Inches. Okay, let's make it easy. All right. So it's 175.1 by 69.6 by 49.8 inches. So that's that's how I want it to end up, right? So now I can measure in this view. All right, this is coming in at 183, let's say 0.5, and then the height is what, 52, height's 52.22. Okay, so now it knows this is the front view, and in the front view you can only get length and height. You can't get width, so it doesn't matter. It's going to throw that out. And so I hit scale, and it scaled. And that one was actually really close to what the scale was, so it didn't look dramatic. But let's do this one, the front one. Okay. So here. Okay. So let's measure width. 154. And then the height. 90 points. All right, scale, boom, right? And so now that's scaled relative to that side. And then I would scale the top too, right, to match that. All right, so for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to show you now the next step. Okay, so let's just grab this and put it back here. Put this down. Okay, so now I could come in here, of course, now that I've got them scaled, you know, that's cool. And I could add a grease pencil object and I could start to draw, right? So I could draw, I'm left-handed, so this is gonna suck, right? You could start to draw this in this view, right? There's my sweet car, right? And then I could do the same thing in this view, and then I could project the two and get those curves in 3D space. But I've done that for you. So let's do this. So that algorithm, the OpenCV, has a edge detector. And so what that does is it runs these two filters. It converts the image to like a grayscale image. It does a few things. It blurs it. And then it tries to find a huge difference in gray, scales of gray between one pixel to the next. And it figures out that that's an edge of an object or whatever in the part. And so this is going to use that to create those images. And then I'm going to use that to pull pixels off of them and put them into the part. So just the intermediate step is this. So I set this to, oops, create this first. Well, it did because I rotated it. But that's that image. That's the pixels it pulled off the image. And there's also another one called contours, which it tries to figure out if it's one stroke. It's not so great with this because it does a little more. You know, it thinks that this whole pink part right here is one stroke. But, you know, it gives you an idea of what it's seeing. And then I can tweak those numbers so I can get more or less of the information from my image. So using that, I'll go through and I'll create a CSV point file off of that and then import it in. There's those pixels. Now I can do the same over here. Let's move this one up. Okay, so that one got a lot of background info. Okay, so now I created another add-on or another, yeah, I guess it's an add-on in that will, it will polyfit splines through these points. So I'm going to set this to show a bevel and come in here and start selecting points along this curve. So let's do this whole side. It could be a little bit messy. It doesn't matter too much. All right. And then boom, there's that curve. And then I can do the same over here. And boom, there's that curve. And now this curve, I can change the parameters. Well, I can change them before I create it. So I set this up so you can actually, so this is going to fit a 5th degree polynomial curve and put 7 segments in it. And then I added a bevel to it just so you could see it. Right. But, you know, so from here, I can clean this up, tweak it a little bit more. But what you would do now is to combine these two curves into a 3D projection, right? So there's that. And boom, there's 3D projection of that curve in space. So now it matches the curvature of this front view and the top view, right? And so imagine you go around the entire car and you do this, right? And I did this and didn't take me too long.
And I think you can also really just clean up the images too to help it out.
Mm-hmm.
Where you trace them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
How much work would you say that? Sorry, but how much work would you say that was?
This took me about an hour.
Oh wow.
So this is the you know, and from here I would go and start cleaning up. You clean up the curves a little bit more. You know, I'm a car guy, so this looks like crap to me. But I would clean it up a little bit more and start making surfaces off of it. And so Google has this Google Quick Draw algorithm where I see this would be kind of a neat thing to port that into here. And now have it where you sketch and it knows a couple lines on the car, and then it completes the rest of it for you. Or it starts to build a base mesh, and you go from there. So that's where I've got with my demos. So I want to show you a couple last slides here. This is the Google Quick Draw. So it's neat. You can go online and check this out. And you just draw a couple things and it tries. You're helping train their algorithm too. So they're getting something out of it. But it's really neat. And then the Deep Dream, this Deep Dream generator has some pretty sweet things. You can go down the rabbit hole on that one. So thank you. Current slide. So this is how you can contact me. I currently on Gumroad am it doesn't cost anything. You download for free. Just the image voodoo part. It's the part that doesn't do the point extraction yet. It puts your images in space and it scales. It lets you scale them. So that part of it, that kind of save you a little bit of time here and there. I'm cleaning up their algorithm for the rest of it because, like I said, my code is terrible and yeah, I need a lot of work. So yes, I don't, not yet. Yeah. Get on it. All right.
Are you later?
Yeah. No, I know.
Do you have this whole method thing that you just did on your YouTube channel?
No, not yet. Well, currently on the YouTube channel, all that I have on there is the directions on how to do the image voodoo stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this presentation I put is together for you guys so far.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. So thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
It's going to take just a minute or two to get set up for the next speaker. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves. And we'll be with you in a sec.
I was thinking that.
All right.
We have a question.
Oh, yeah.
How'd you get that 3D image out of your iPhone?
Oh, so I have this software called what is it? 3D Zephyr, and I think it cost me $100, and it does photogrammetry. It's super simple. It's got kind of a little wizard thing that you just follow. That so I created a minute-long video, and I used VLC viewer to extract like 500 pictures from it, so JPEGs, and then you feed it into that software, and it stitches them together, and it figures out your 3D point cloud.
You said the name of it was 3D Zephyr.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, 3D Zephyr. 3D Zephyr Lite is what I'm using. Yep. Under Meetup too. Yeah. Got it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, man.
Have you ever used Redscape? No. It's a VR test. It has this really cool tool that kind of meshes with what you're doing there. You've got
over a gig.
because one file has some architecture already laid down.
It's fine.
Which I mean, like less than just two versions. So you can build some gravity stretch. And you can now do that on Oculus Quest.
All right. So for those on our who are coming in remote, we're just setting up for the next speaker. We're just going to talk in just a moment. I see Chris online. Hey, Chris. There's about 26 people in the room. Yeah, pretty good turnout.
Is it always like this?
It's like this. It varies. Sometimes it's a little smaller, sometimes a little bigger. All right. So why don't you come on up, grab a seat. I think we're all ready and ready for you. So basically, this is a file explorer open to where your files are. Here's a Blender 2.A1 running. We're sharing desktop, so you're on camera. And yeah, feel free to take it away. So Dave, let us know if we have any audio or video issues, okay? Great. Okay. All right. So introduce yourself. Okay. And then introduce your topic. Take it away. Hey everyone. So next presentation, guys. Over to you. Hey everyone. I'm Sergio. I'm a cinematographer, occasional director. I do compositing. I do 3D, and ever since I started doing 3D, I've always been selecting with the right click. So the subject matter today is a title sequence for a proof of concept pilot episode I did earlier this year. But before we jump into the subject matter, a few words about something that I presented last time. If some of you remember, the Half Decent spec commercial about an astronaut. So that spec ad won a Clio Award, which I'm saying this because I hope that it would serve as an inspiration to some of you guys, because you can do your personal project and you can win an award with the same show with a 4-minute Ridley Scott ad. So, you know, I know it sounds silly, but you know, it's, yeah, thank you. And so that's essentially how I got that gig, because I showed it to a guy who worked as an AD on a few shows, and, you know, specifically the Sphere One project, and he hired me as a DP for his episode. And the biggest challenge here was that I didn't have a lot of time to, you know, conceive it and do it, and plus the render time and all that stuff. But let me shut up and just show you something. So I'm just gonna open. Do we have sound? What? Okay, so I have a backup. Oh. Okay. You'll see. Nuke. However, you know, for a long time, I mean, I've been wondering, you know, this thing, Natron, the open source compositing software, which I learned about from, I think, Sean's website. And I was wondering if it would be awesome, since it's open source, if Blender could incorporate, just acquire it and incorporate into Blender, because Blender's compositor, I know some people use it, but, you know. They don't like to do their own thing. Oh. So, but yeah, but I'm always pushing against. Yeah. Okay. Big deal. Okay, so it's a little laggy, isn't it? Okay, for that, that's why I brought up a backup version. All right. Hold on. How do I? Can you just shut up the volume and am I shutting up the microphone as well? No, the button. You shouldn't have well, just like you say. So let's just watch it again. We're going to quickly just go through it. Again, the biggest challenge when you find a good frame was that I didn't have enough time to do it, to conceive and render and all that stuff. So, because at first I wanted to do an all 3D, all made in Blender, obviously, in that title sequence. But since I had to do a van explosion also, and if you guys have done simulations, you know how long that takes. So I wanted to, like, for this, one of the symbolic, you know, things I thought of was an iris specifically, and of course, me being a lazy person, I didn't want to sit and sculpt it from scratch. So I was able to find some
high resolution photographs online, just paint out unwanted stuff and just create maps of that. And that's the basis of it. Other than that, it was just a squashed piece of the sphere. And the rest was just lighting and doing camera move, which is the lighting gun. Oh, it's lagging for some reason.
That's weird.
Okay, let's is something else running? Well, yeah.
Yeah. You're not running the software USB thumb drive, right?
Huh?
Hey, you're not running.
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Okay, well, seems to be okay now. Yeah, and so I ended up just throwing some After Effects stuff just to save some time. And here I just thought, okay, damn, I don't have any time. What can I do? And I remembered the OpenStreetMap plugin where you can just take a chunk of a city and just import it in just to save time. You know what I mean? And plus, I didn't need to texture anything anyways. So that's how that worked out. And also, I thought it would be cool.
Just to go back to that, is that like you're looking to look like over, or are those two layers you
Right here?
this, yeah.
Well, I'm looking through another object, which I brought one Blender file, which we'll take a look at.
So this is like basically this is what you're looking at.
Yeah, through the camera. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and so I thought it would be cool to do like human-esque figures overlooking the city and all that stuff, and more on that in just a little moment. And I remember I was watching videos of this guy who goes by Mentisa, I think, who does, it's essentially in principle, it's very similar, which is a euphemism of saying, I stole that method from him, which I mean, it's I don't take any credit for, but I'm.
Homage.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, so some pretty little things, and off you go, basically. And I like how this dude ended up, not because he literally has a freeway intersection in LA in his mouth, but because of the symbolism and all that stuff. Which I literally used the road map of LA as a mask for that. Yeah, and that's about it. I brought a Blender file, just one, because I need this when I. Wait a minute, is it? It's not obscured. Sterling.
Sorry, what's happening?
It's not obscured. The other file is that
Oh,
the
yeah.
file?
Grab it and drag it down to the taskbar, and you can. Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I ran Blender off from the zip file. I never install it.
Oh,
So let me just open this for you real quick. Old school. I like using the experimental builds. That's why I do that. Okay, so Blender is not running. So let me do that. Let me go open it. Give me a sec. Downloads. Blender. 3.81. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's drag that over. Drop it in here. Sorry. Is this a big blend file?
No, it's like 200 megabytes.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Apologies for any lag.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dismiss that. Just hit close.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So here you can see that I basically imported a chunk of LA downtown into it and just made a group and duplicated it a few times to create some depth. And one of the things I'm always liked about Blender is that since I've been doing cinematography and photography for a little bit longer than I've been doing 3D and comping, is that I light scenes in Blender exactly the same way I would light a set. Of course, names are different, but other than that, one of the many things I like. The only thing I still haven't used in 2.8, 2.1 is the fact that, do you remember before in 2.7 we had layers? And since I've always loved Blender for its efficiency, before it was a one-click, you were one click away from selecting another layer. And here, yeah, collections, I get it, but here you have to enable or disable, and then it's more like 2 clicks at least. So, but, oh, I mean, unless there's a shortcut, and I'm just a fool speaking, but that's also a possibility. But yeah, so I did a bunch of tests and all that stuff. So just a lot of collections that I ended up not using. But the thing about this one, oh, is it left click? Yes, it is.
Sorry.
Drag this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to use that.
Oh, damn, man. So in principle, the way it works is that you take a mesh, it could be any mesh, and then you smooth it out, you subdivide it, and then you create a vertex group, which could be the whole mesh, and then I'm just citing somebody else's technique that I took the credit for. No, I didn't. So you create the vertex weight modifier, and you just invert the curve, and you add that as a vertex group, and as a texture, you can use whatever noise, cell noise, distortion, any texture you want to create, basically randomized holes in your mesh and all that stuff. And then you add a mask with the same vertex group. And so that's how, I did the holes, and then, click. And then for the rest, it's basically the same principle with the lovely wireframe modifier. Yeah, and a different texture. Yeah, so that's about it.
Awesome. Cool. 1 second, the city thing. I guess I wasn't familiar with the quick city thing or whatever. How do you generate the blocky building?
Oh no! So there's an add-on called Open Street Map or something like that. I forgot how it's called.
Well, I'll open a browser and just Google for it.
Yeah, or you can do it because it's your laptop.
Yeah, why don't you just stand up and answer questions and all that.
All right, sure.
We'll take it from here. Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Sergio. So let's see, you were talking about the Blender Open Street Map add-on.
By the way, you can get rid of all those little people inside there. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. All right. The thing is, where do you put it then? It's gonna like interferes with.
Bottom right. There you go. Right.
There'll be something down here that I'll need. I guarantee it.
Never win.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So OpenStreetMap. Yeah. Here it looks like if you just Google for that, you should be able to find it.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah. There's so many add-ons for Blender. It's like endless. It's amazing. All right.
Real quick,
Yep.
The way that you got the texture to work on your mesh model there to show all those holes, what was the modifier that you put on there?
Oh, you mean the holes?
Yeah.
So you basically you create a vertex group for the mesh, and then you add a vertex weight modifier, and then you invert the curve instead of going up. You invert the curve, and you create a texture. It could be any texture you want. It could be an image, which I ended up using on one of them, or it could be like a noise texture, whatever. And then after that, you have a mask with the same vertex.
Cool. All right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
You spelled my last name right. Awesome.
oh yeah. Not usually my strong point, but I'm glad I got it right. Okay, so we have an option of either going into another session or taking a break. What do you think? One more session? Yeah. Okay, David, are you online? All right. I'm gonna stop desktop sharing. Why don't you take it away with your session?
Yeah, give me a second. Let me sort a few things out. Buy me like 1 minute.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, so we're going to take a poll while we're waiting for David. So do this. So pull out your phones, and you want to go to this URL and punch in this code, and vote. Just vote on what you make with Blender. So we want to hear, if you use like a single word to describe it, it'll probably work better because we're trying to build a word cloud here to figure out what you guys are interested in. Oh, yeah, my bad. Here, 68, 15, 10. Uh-oh. Oh, nice. Oh, Gary. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, let's see if I could find it. Wow. All right. Hold on, I'll bring it up. I'll get you guys the right code. I apologize. So now it says 68, 15, 10. All right, let's. Oh, here we go. Are you guys getting it now? Yeah. All right, apologize. Yeah. Start over. All right. So we have up to 3 options. All right, I got 2 votes. Stuff. Everybody's favorite thing to do. I personally can't wait for, what is the destructibility version? Yeah, the fracture branch. I want that along with like that city creator, and then just like put a Godzilla in the middle of it. Maybe put on some VR goggles, start stomping through them. Oh, wait.
This is cool how it updates in real time.
Yeah, so everybody's got their phones out. We're all voting. So we had 16 votes here. Yeah, if you're online and you want to vote, by all means, throw it in there. We can take up to 3 votes per person. So yeah, awesome. 19. Everybody done? Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for that. David, you ready?
Good to go.
All right, cool. I'm going to stop sharing. It's up to you. I'm going to maximize this.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me find Zoom. Share screen, and then let me know if you can see Blender and a monkey.
We can see Blender and a monkey.
Woo! All right, demo over. It works. We're able to work remotely. Okay. Hi, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is David Andrade. We've been doing this, I don't know how many years now, Sterling. I almost don't want to know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
But we've been working in Blender ever since day one here at Theory, and big fans of it. And lately, with Blender 2.81, there is an awesome new update, and it includes what's known as the Intel denoiser. Now, I know we talked a little bit about that earlier. There's a demo on the website that you can check out here, and you can kind of see how awesome this denoiser is. So on the left is 4 samples, and on the right is 4 samples, right? So it's pretty amazing how much this denoiser works. So what I want to do in this short, say 10 or 15 minute talk is go over the denoiser and some of the things that we've noticed in production and how to use it to your best advantage. But if you get anything from this talk, use the denoiser. That's all I can really say. It is superb. So let me go ahead and minimize that, and let's just take a super basic scene. We've got ourselves a wonderful little monkey right here, and right away we can see it's going to be a little bit noisy. especially right down in here when things get kind of dark. And hopefully this compression through the internet is showing some of that noise, right? Hopefully we can appreciate that there's something going on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out here and just render this. I'm not going to do anything other than just render it. It has no denoise on, and what we're going to do is we're going to compare the old denoise that Lucas Stockner wrote back in the Man at High Castle days to the Intel denoise, to just not having any denoising at all. So okay, hopefully if I zoom in enough, you can see that there's a lot of noise going on in here. It's pretty grainy, right? And that's natural, right? This is where things get kind of tough in that really dark area. So we're going to leave that on slot 1, and I'm going to make a slot 2. I'm going to put this over here for a second and go to view layer. Now this is the old denoise. This is right here. I'm not going to really mess with any of the options. I'm just going to leave them all on by default. It's down here at the bottom right if you can't see them. I know sometimes if you're in the far back it's a little tough. This operates on a very image-based denoising. So I'm not going to do anything crazy, just going to turn it on and render it and see what we get. Now this is cool because it happens at each block. So you'll notice I have like double the amount of orange blocks. As each block finishes, it creates another orange little block here, another tile, if you will, and it denoises there. And you know, for the most part, this denoise is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. Actually, let's zoom out. Let's look at it from just a regular 100% view. And at 100%, not bad. Not bad. But when you start to get closer, or if you have large images that have a lot of fidelity, you start to see some of the issues. Now, again, I'm hoping that some of this can translate through the Zoom screen share. But if you look especially at the shadow, right, especially in this area, and I'm not sure if it's translating well, but hopefully it is. Hopefully you guys can see it. You start to get a lot of blocky noise. Funny enough, you get noise on top of denoise. You get these blocky artifacts that are starting to happen around your image. And again, it's not a bad denoise, and for the most part, it works pretty well. So let's also remember the time. This one took 21 seconds, and without denoising on, it took 13 seconds, right? So 13 for no noise denoising, 21 for the software denoising that we had from before. So now let's go to slot 3. Let's turn off this denoising. For the love of God, don't combine the two. You'll be in for a world of hurt. And right under here, under passes, if you just open that up, you'll see a new option called denoising data. Denoising data, right? So let's open up a compositor. Let's come over here. You're going to need to use nodes, so turn that on. And I'll just move my composite node over here to the right a little bit. You'll see all of these options, and they can get kind of overwhelming, but you really only need to do a couple of things. So let's add ourselves a denoise. So Shift A, denoise. Let's just put that between these two. And then we want to connect the normal to normal and albedo to albedo. And that's it. That's all we need to do. So now let's come back over here. Actually, let me click render, and let's let this thing render. I'm just going to zoom out. You'll see it's processing and doing its thing. Give it a couple seconds here. Now, the interesting thing about this denoise is you'll render out a noisy image first, and then you'll run a denoising on top of that after the entire image has been processed. The cool thing about that is that you can actually go back to the original noisy image in here. You can actually select the noisier one. Actually, I think I just need it selected by the compositor. But anyways, let's zoom in. And a couple good things, a couple bad things. A couple good things. We maintain that really nice softness that's going on in here. So you don't see any artifacting that would normally have happened with the software denoise, right? It starts to look really kind of nice and gradient. However, you start to see some issues. And again, I'm hoping this translates out through the Zoom screen share, but you can start to see that it starts to get a little garbly gook along the edges here. Again, though, if you zoom out, it looks pretty awesome. at 100%. And the cool thing is, look at that time. We're at 1886. With the software denoise, we were at 21. And with no denoising of any sort, just a raw render, we're at 13 seconds. So this denoising feature is much faster than the previous version, and the fidelity is great. It looks really, really good. But like all denoising, it does kind of fall apart a little bit at the closer edges. There are a few things you can do. So let me go ahead and close this and switch over to image editor. I'm actually going to I'm going to make a viewer node really quick. Viewer node. Let me drag that over here. So let's just look at our noisy image really fast. And we're going to bring this over here. And just move that over a little bit too. Okay, so here's our noisy image. Here is our denoise image. It's going to take a second for it to process. There we go. It is a composite pass, so it does take a little bit to process. You do have this option called HDR. And actually, by mistake, I already had clicked it off. So this is with HDR on. And this is trying to say that we're going to sample, well, high dynamic range on all of these pixels. I've noticed that if you turn it off, sure, you lose a little bit of that range, but you also get rid of a lot of the artifacting that happens. So I'll just click it on and then click it off again. And again, it might be really hard to see through a screen share, but you start to lose some of the artifacting if you turn off HDR. But naturally, you just want to be careful, make sure you get like the kind of image that you want. I haven't noticed this change anything with any clipping values or anything like that. You know, the image integrity is still there, the lightness values, all of that's still there. But just playing with that option, I've noticed it can improve some of those really high contrasty areas. So in short, denoise is pretty awesome and it's really easy to use. So now let's go ahead and look at some like a real case study. So let's pull up this awesome little scene. Boop. So this does not have denoise on, but I'm going to go ahead and turn on denoising data just to leave it on there. It actually has a whole bunch of stuff on, so I'm going to turn that all off. Yeah, just leave all of that off and just leave on denoise. And I want to pick a small section here because I don't want to spend forever rendering. So let's just pick a small little section and see if the demo gods smile upon me. Maybe they will. It did during my practice run. Okay, here we go. So we're starting to synchronize everything, and then in a little bit, we'll start to render it. So while that's going, a couple of other thoughts on denoise. You can get away with really low samples, as you noticed in your initial Blender image where we had only 4 samples. You can get away with really low samples. It works great on stills. It does not work great if you're animating. You will see the warbling that starts to happen with denoise if you use really low samples. That being said, we've been able to get away with scenes at like 32 or sometimes even just 60 samples on an animated render, and you really kind of can't tell. But anything below 30, you start to see a little bit of warbling when you animate it. So just something to be aware of. You actually used to be able to see that issue with the old denoiser as well. Okay, so all I did is go ahead and render this. What samples is it set to? Default branched 32, 128. So this is going to take a little bit to render. Ooh, okay, there you go. It's going to go for about a minute. So I'll just let that keep going for a second. Actually, you know what? Maybe what I want to do, so I can render this a lot quicker so we're not sitting here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll just go to path tracing, and 800 is ridiculous. We'll do what Blender did. We'll set it to 4 samples. We'll see what that gets us. So let's go ahead and render image. And of course, it's going to take a moment or two to synchronize because it is a super heavy scene. In practice, the only other thing I'd recommend is making sure you take care of fireflies. This denoiser seems to act a little funny with fireflies, so just be aware of that. Set your clamps or whatever you need to do to get rid of fireflies to the best of your ability. That also causes a little bit of weird warbling. The cool thing though is that this works off of normals and the actual geometry. Like this denoise actually works off of geometry. It's not like a post filter, post smoothing kind of pass. It actually works off the normals of what's inside the scene. So you get a lot cleaner image, a lot quicker, and with a lot less samples. All right, so we're building a BVH. We're at 99, and any second now we'll render, and then we'll turn on our denoise over here on the right. Okay, this scene is perfect, right? This is production ready, right? We ideally we turn this in and we're done. Okay, so let's zoom in here. I got my viewer node over here, so I'm going to switch to viewer. 1 second, viewer node. There we are. And come back here, Shift A, and let's go ahead and add a denoise. Put it here, put it here. That's interesting. Let's go to render result. For some reason, viewer doesn't want to pop up. All right, so denoise, normal to normal, albedo to albedo, and use nodes. Maybe, possibly. Oh, darn. Okay, all right. I guess my demo does. Hey, there we go. Okay, whew. I was having a heart attack for a second. I thought the demo wasn't going to work, but there you go. Look at that. That image is super clean. Now. Okay.
We're getting some video delay for you, Dave.
Oh, great. Okay.
You may want to let it sit for a bit.
Okay. So I don't know what you guys can see. Hopefully you can see something. It looks super grainy. And do you see something super grainy potentially? Maybe.
Yeah, super grainy.
Okay. Here we go. Here's the magic. Let's take a deep breath. Boom. Denoised.
Not yet. Hold on. Still grainy.
Still grainy.
Come here.
Any second.
Not too good. Waiting for it. Fine.
Nothing?
We're all holding our breaths here. It's still
Oh,
Your
crap.
cursor is under the sampling tab if that tells you where you
Hey! Oh man, we're 30 seconds off. Whew. So that's denoise, Intel denoise. It's dope. It's super fast, unless you're screen sharing across the U.S. But we've been using it in production since January, when some of the or whenever I think it initially was like debuted a while back. We started testing with it, and then we just threw it into production earlier this year, and it works really well. Caveats are HDR can be a little funny with some of the edging, and you probably actually see here. I don't. It might take like 7 minutes now. I just turned off HDR, and you'll actually see that the image changes rather significantly. So, being aware of what HDR does to your image is important. And then the only other thing is you actually do want more samples. You don't really want to render with 4 because you're going to see some of that warbling effect. It'll look a little Ed, and Eddie, if anyone remembers that old Cartoon Network cartoon. So just be aware. But Intel denoise, you just got to use it. It's super great. So definitely add that to your workflows.
Right on. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right. What do you guys think? Wait, break or one more session? How are you feeling? Should we take a break? Keep going? All right. Come on up, Gary. So, all right. Thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, man.
If you stop sharing, I'll grab the screen share back again.
Yep.
I have this really bad feeling that the delay might be coming from my PC. So let's.
I was also seeing you here. So
God. Sorry, guys. Okay, I need to upgrade my PC. Okay, let me just shut down as much as possible, just so oh yeah, we still got this big blend file open. There we go. Let's free up some memory, close down some stuff. We get some photos open. I think that's about as slim as we can make it. All right. And then I need to go, whoops. Share screen. Okay. Can you see Blender, Dave? Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself and then talk about what you're going to talk about and take it away.
Cool. My name's Gary Tucker. I'm a Blender hobbyist right now. I do the animation and motion capture, and I'm just going to do an overview of the new outliner and some of the transforms and snapping that they added in 8.1. I was actually really excited that they updated the outliner because it was one of the first things I noticed when I was coming from Maya. In the old one, you'd be able to select them and they'd have the blue highlight over it, and they wouldn't sync with the objects in the viewport. So you'd be like making your houses and whatnot. Cute. And now when you select them all, they sync, and you can navigate through them with the arrow keys. And you can go down in parent hierarchy. Actually, you can parent them through the outliner now by clicking, dragging, and then holding shift. Yes, yes. And then you can go into the hierarchies by going left and right with the arrow keys. What else was there? Parenting hierarchy. The battery name. You already went over this a bit, but yeah, because it's Control F2, and you can switch between whatever you have selected and searching through all of them. And what I think will be really helpful is the find and replace. So you can find Q, and turn that into home, because that's a good base, and it'll update it all for you. Was there anything else interesting in there? Objects, find, replace, set name. You can through set name, you can add suffixes and prefixes. So this one works better with selected. So I could select all my cubes or 2 cubes. Control F2 and set name, suffix. Oh, not at all. Oh, this one's got me really excited, because this is another thing that I thought was like loopy when I first got into Blender. If you wanted to change the origin, you'd have to go into object mode, select everything, and then move it. Now you can go into edit mode, select everything and move it. Now in object mode, you can go over to options, select origin, and then you get these handles. You can use your G, your translate, to move the origins. And these 2 boxes are moving because they're parented to the origin. R works to, oh man, it's gonna be a lifesaver.
Yeah, that's
there was another thing that options on the top right, and then select origins.
There's also the effect with parents.
That's the thing I was about. Thank you. I was actually trying to figure out how to do that, because they don't talk about it much. But like he said,
So if you turn off the origin so that you're moving the object again, and then now move the parent, see how it's still parented, but it's not moving.
yes, yes, yes. And then the last thing that I have to share is
the shift selecting multiple options. That was a big one. Like the fact that you can be like, from here to here, select.
yeah.
Like, just selecting. I was like, I don't care about Eevee.
You can select individually with control as well. So hop around. I think that's going to be real helpful too.
Right. Just like a range.
So yeah, shift select, go straight up and down, and then control select individually and just add them. Next is they have new edge snapping, so you can snap to the edge to the center of an edge. So right there, and perpendicular, the edge perpendicular. I don't really understand that much, to be honest with you. They say to the nearest edge point, and I don't know what that means. So maybe one of you guys can figure that out. Active. No, I still don't get it. But edge center still seems helpful. That's all I really have to go over. Big take.
Okay, so I tell you what, why don't we take a break? We'll take like a 15-minute break. So what time is it now? It's 12:46. So be back here at 1 o'clock. And yeah, we'll continue on. We got a couple other sessions after that. Sure. Actually, I closed it. Now that we saved the data, but we'll have another vote a little bit later. Cool. All right, guys.
Because it's also, I was noting
That's what it was. Using the microphone on this thing with the Zoom plan was causing my machine to slow down. I think I'm back. Oh my gosh, I think I'm back. Just some weird, it's a weird driver combo, I'm guessing. Alright, I'm back. Unfortunately, I have to go, but I really appreciate you doing this. Yeah, of course. So yeah, thanks for coming. Blender in itself can be a little isolating in Los Angeles. Yeah, I know, weird though, right? But there's lots of them. Yeah, I mean, if we had one of these meetings once a month, well, I'm an educator part-time, and I'm trying to figure out how to integrate Blender because it's actually hard to get it taught in school.
changing. And I apologize.
No, do your thing.
Concentrated. So ours ends up somewhere around like 145. Yeah, you bet. You want to start the voting? Sorry, I'll leave the code up. Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get kicked off again. So just to get everybody into the mindset, we have an open-ended question here. We would love to know how to make these meetings better. So connect again to menti.com, punch in this code, and just let us know. Give us one tip on how we can make this better. Yep. Now I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to vote. Showcase work.
We're
Yes.
gonna have a showcase work later, right?
We are, yeah. So we're running a little behind schedule. So we can either do showcase work or ask me anything. Might be a little tight to do both. I don't know.
I'll put a collection jar over there. Did we run out?
We're down to like one bagel.
The cake? Very popular.
Catering.
Catering. Stellar idea.
Does pizza count as food catering?
I think so. Meat satisfies all fine meat. That's the only food group that I eat.
What's up?
The meeting's always here. How does that
No, we will move them around. So generally speaking, we take the community meeting rooms and libraries. So normally we have this huge room down in Marina del Rey. Beautiful. It's right on the boat harbor. It's totally free to use. It's kind of incredible. So we usually use that room, but they're remodeling, so we're doing it here. We've moved it around a little bit. Sometimes it's Santa Monica.
Are they monthly or is it synchronized?
So we try and time them for every Blender release, which nowadays means about every 3 months. Yeah, that gives us enough to talk about. You know, there's a lot that happens in 3 months. This one was particularly long time because we had a SIGGRAPH over the summer, and instead of holding our monthly meeting, we just all go to the SIGGRAPH because all the Blender Foundation is there. There's a huge,
great meeting.
yeah, it was really awesome. Yeah, there's like, I don't know, 50, 100 people, all from the different studios and game developers. It's really great. And it's free.
And like I said, a couple of the Blender games are in town right now. If anybody's got their like.
Yeah, Francesco's over.
Yeah, Francesco's here and two of the other one of the yeah. For the next week or whatever. Everybody wants to hang out.
I may swing up by there after this.
Yeah.
So just while we're waiting. So just by show of hands, what's more interesting to you guys? Like a show and tell session where people present their projects, or an ask me anything? Like first for show and tell. Okay, that's pretty good. And then ask me anything. Okay. All right. Cool.
Like both are good.
Well, okay. Well, let's do show and tell, and if we run out of topics, we'll do an ask me anything. So yeah, apologies we didn't get through it all today, but this is good stuff. All right, so Sean, why don't you come on up? So I just wanted to show, actually, before we get kicked off, this is just a turntable of like some of the assets that came out of that Quixel pack. So basically all I did was just take a circle, take a plane, do some weight painting on it, apply a few particle systems. I stuck a whole bunch of flowers and stuff in here. This took me like an hour or two. And yeah, these are the kinds of things that you can get out of that Quixel pack. So here's. So that was actually, let's see, this was Eevee render, but I did a full render. I didn't do a viewport render. Yeah. So here's that same model.
Now, are you recording that directly from the Pixel, or because this is for Unreal, are you going through Unreal first and then?
No, and it's not required. So they have a bridge product that has an add-in for Blender. And so what you do is you run that add-in, and then in bridge, you just say export, and then it just kind of shows up in Blender, which is really neat. So yeah.
Are those all the free assets? That's the
Free assets if you're using Unreal Engine is how they're licensed. Yeah.
okay.
And there's
so because I don't use Unreal, is it like a subscription or something, and then you get the?
So Unreal, the licensing is variable depending on how you use it. But if you're a hobbyist, it's free to use.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So it's totally free to use if you're not going to turn out commercial games with it.
So
I don't know how that impacts the Quixel content, but
no, totally. But how you're getting it into Blender, you just are also you just also have Unreal. Is that how you're?
So you create an Unreal or an Epic Games account who make the engine, and then you could sign into Quixel using that. You download their Bridge app and you sign in using that same account, and then you run the add-in, and then you just kind of suck the content into Blender. Yeah, you browse the library in Bridge and then export it.
Yeah, because I thought it was like only to like bring the stuff into that. So that's cool. Yeah, good to know.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really good to know.
Why don't you go on up and
This is gonna be fast.
okay.
Ridiculous. I don't even need the computer. Well, I guess I do.
Hey, Lee, Splinter's coming out that chair. Careful, buddy.
Holy cow! Did that stab you?
No.
Oh.
Luckily my genes saved me.
We're gonna plug this in anyway.
You're
Yeah, it's just photos. I'm just gonna flip through one by one.
cool. You're a Windows guy, right?
I am.
Okay. Well,
Your mouse is like a spaceship. I don't know what's going on with it.
that mouse was you, buddy.
All right. So I'm Sean Kennedy, visual effects guy. Went to the Blender conference this year. It's my 4th time going. I go every other year usually. So I've gone 2013, 15, 17, and now 19. So 2021 is looking pretty good too. So this is the first year I didn't give a talk. I usually give a talk. They've had varying levels of success, my talks. The last one was pretty good. I worked really hard. I rehearsed, got everything ready, went over it, tried to make it fun. That one went pretty good. One before it, not so well. One before it was fun at the time, but you look back, it's a little slow. But
all of them were great.
I was really very happy with the last one because I rehearsed it constantly. So yeah, so this year I was like, I'm going, but I'm not going to do a talk because there's always this pressure that you feel when you have to give a talk. And then once the talk is over, then the pressure's gone. Now you're having fun. You can think about things. It's spectacular. So has anyone here ever gone? Anybody else? Anyone? No? Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
I
Excellent.
want to go this year.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, I just brought I just grabbed some photos off my little folder from pictures from the whole thing. And I'll just fly through them. So there's some, I was there for like 2 or 3 days before it started. just to like get settled and relax and kind of start getting used to the time and stuff. And I also I don't like coffee, I don't like tea, but I like hot chocolates. And not like just Swiss Miss, like that's disaster. Like I like real, like get a nice 80% bar, chop it up, melt it in milk. Like I like good hot chocolates, and Europe has lots of that. Really hard to find here in America. So my 2 days in Amsterdam before this was like, oh, I'm gonna find some hot chocolates. So I'll flip through these super fast. They can open, right? Come on. Wow, this thing's even. Oh, right. There was a fire from the plane. I don't know. You know, we always have the fires here in the good picture. These are all in order, right? Let me make sure they're in order. All right, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, yeah. All right. Right, fire from the plane. So this, come on. It's closer to the coast. It was like Malibu or something. But this is the airport. This is where it always starts for me. This is where I always feel like, I'm in Amsterdam. The conference is on. Like, for some reason, like you have to go through customs and all that stuff, and then you come out into this weird area where if it's your first time, you're like, what am I doing now? And directly below you is like the train station. So that always feels like it. That was my hotel. Not fancy. I always get cheapest hotel I can. Blah blah blah. This is what a room in Amsterdam looks like. If you've never gone, they're tiny, tiny, and their staircases are like death traps. Yeah, they're unbelievable. Like some of the some of the hotels I've stayed in. By the time you get to the top of it, the handrails are vertical, literally vertical, and then run into the wall. So the staircases are insane. Like coming down this, like the bed was up there, I would like come down backwards because there's just not enough room to even put your whole foot on it. This is what Amsterdam looks like. I'm just walking around, funky little gate with you get to walk on top of. I had to take a ferry because the institute used to be down. I don't know if you know how Amsterdam is situated, but it's kind of on a river. This big river. Amsterdam's right on it, and there's all these canals in kind of a U shape around the city in rings. And that's where all the fun stuff is. When people think of Amsterdam, they think of all those rings. And the institute kind of used to be east of those. So I would purposely get hotels on the west. So I would always have to walk through and cut through, and I'd get to learn Amsterdam and find favorite places. But now they've moved above the river into the north of Amsterdam. So I thought, hey, I'll just go up there and stay up there, and I'll learn a new section of Amsterdam. But I forgot that the conference itself was being held at a facility still on the rings. So every day I'd have to walk to the ferry, take the ferry, walk. But I eventually figured out the subway and all that stuff, so it made it much quicker. But the ferries were kind of fun. There a weird ping pong table in the middle of a park. These are all like just beautiful things you see just walking around at night. It's gorgeous there. It's awesome. This building has a swing set on top. You can pay and they'll swing you out over the edge of it. Fun. I'm trying to do this real quick to get to the actual conference part. Bakery has. I went to this little town because I've seen a lot of Amsterdam now. I went to this little town. I took a bus about 20 minutes outside of town. Somebody told me there was. They said this is the oldest town. Like this town is older than Amsterdam. Like they built this town first, and then they built Amsterdam to have access to the waterway or something. And they were talking about like in the Middle Ages, like Jewish people couldn't be buried in Amsterdam, so they would all come here. So there's a real neat graveyard there. So I thought I'll go down there and look around, and I found it eventually. And they had this like bakery that was like 150 years old or something with this cool outside seating, inside panoramic, awesome hot chocolate. Pour it right in, make your own. Yeah, this is good stuff. No powder mixes. This is awesome. They have these little cars. I only see them in Amsterdam. I took like 10 pictures of them. It's like the size of this table. You can literally just touch both tires. They're real small. They're literally just like a box, like a refrigerator box. They're just plastic. I've seen them riding on like, you're supposed to keep them on the roads, but I've seen them on bike paths and on walkways through parks and stuff. I think so, but I'm not totally sure. Oh yeah, that was just some funky canal in somebody's backyard. This is one of the back entrances to that graveyard church. Beautiful, nice church. These are the graveyards. Awesome graves. Like they're all above ground, I guess, because it's so wet there. I don't know. I'll just flip through them quick. They all have dates on them from like 1500s, 1600s. Some of them are cracking, which like Yeah, like wouldn't you patch that at some point? It seems maybe slightly toxic. I don't know. But they were beautiful. They were just so neat to see. Some cat checking it out. This is where the subway would let out. This was like some old, I don't even know what it was, but this courtyard in front, they would have a market at some days. This was the first day of the conference, my walking to the conference from the subway station. So just more, this is what all the streets look like, blah, blah, blah. And that's the conference. This is like first day. My mouse going? Yeah. This is like this big banner that has the name of the conference place on it. And these are all Blender folk gathering outside. This is what the inside looked like. Somebody, I don't even know who, but somebody made this amazing backdrop image. And it's got all these like hidden things in it. Like,
I was wondering about that.
it was an amazing image. Like you kind of want to download like a high res of it and like look at all, because like it has people's names in it, like all the people that work at the institute or that do training online. Like all their names are like hidden inside there somewhere. I don't know. I can't. I asked somebody, but it's a CG image.
It's an LED wall, right?
I don't know. I don't know what
the
LED
new
wall.
one,
Yes,
I
yes.
saw the last one. And
Yeah.
That was kind of
Yeah.
ghetto, but this
Yeah, this one was much bigger. Really cool. So yeah, this is pretty neat. Ton comes out. He does his normal thing. Go around the room. What country you from? All that. Giving his talk, which is always great. I thought I took a bunch of pictures with. I have a better camera, and I took some pictures because I thought he's against green here, so we can put these online and kind of do whatever we want. There was a bunch of people like that would use green as their backdrop. I thought, you're just asking for it. I brought this is what the schedule looks like, because I don't remember. You know the day of what's going on, but in case you also get swag. I'll show you these things. Right, like when you get there, you get like a cool Blender bag. Right, you get free buttons. I'm like a silver sponsor. I had like $12 a month or something, so I got a little silver badge. I took nodes. They have like all these things that are on here. They have buttons of them, and I'm a compositor, so I'm all about nodes. Somebody printed buttons. So like if you lose a button on your shirt, somebody printed little 3D logo buttons, full color. And they have just a big box, and they're like, take as many as you want. So I took a handful. I don't know where I'll ever use them, but I have Blender buttons. So yeah, the swag is kind of fun. I got a shirt too, but it's still dirty. But yeah, this is the schedule. I probably don't need to go through who every single one of these people are, but because I think the schedule's online still. But yeah, they were great. Like the variety of things you get when you go here. Like these guys are, and I talked with him a whole lot for the conference too. I want to say his name's Luca. His name's not Luca. Yeah, it is Luca. It is Luca. Yeah. And then off to the side is Nicholas. Yeah, Luca and Nicholas off to the side. They're doing short films and stuff to give a little presentation. And of course, like we were saying, all these are online on their YouTube channel. And you almost can't go wrong. Like they're all good. It's just fascinating the range of things people use it for. It's mind blowing. This is Oscar. He runs the Seattle LA Blender group. He's been doing it obviously for 10 years. He did a talk on it. He's an art teacher, so he does art. And a really fascinating guy. Loves to talk art, loves to talk CG. You'll see later when I go to Blender Institute, when I got there, somebody was sitting outside on the sidewalk and he was walking around them taking pictures. He's like photogrammetrying everybody if they wanted. So I went outside and did like a 70s Han Solo action figure pose. I imagine I'll get those someday. But yeah, he's great. He did a whole talk on Blender Meetup groups, and he ran all these like analytics and got feedback and stuff, which was really fun to see. Like where do you promote all that kind of stuff? So it was fun. This is Sergey, one of the main coders of Blender. Delay, another coder, and Paul McManus, English guy, does really amazing art on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You guys probably all, I don't know if you've paid any attention to the Institute at all, but if you have, you probably know Sergey and Delay. I think Delay's done a lot of the stereoscopic stuff in Blender. I don't know what else he's done actually, and then Sergey does everything. There's like three guys, Sergey, Brecht, and Campbell, that are kind of like the heads of everything. Like if you write something for Blender and you want it in there, at one point, one of them is going to have to look at it and approve every line of code and all that stuff. They're fun. This is Mike Irwin, good guy. He's the guy doing the GTL stuff. Um, he gave a great talk on it. Pablo did a Blender Today live, like a talk show. It was like Ellen or something. It was really fun. And it got insane applause. People were going nuts. Yeah, Sergey, come on. Sergey has for years has adamantly denied coming on to the YouTube show. He just doesn't want to be part of it. So he got him to do it live at least. And yeah, that was so day one. That was it. At the end of it, everybody goes out for drinks. It's really is. It's like a family. It's really strange, especially once by the time you've done your second one and everybody's like, oh, you're back. Everybody's hugging. It's a great time. So everybody goes out. Everybody knows, and everybody uses Twitter because phone numbers are very regional and things like that, or most people's phones may not even work, but Twitter works everywhere. So everybody's on Twitter. Hey, we're over here. Hey, we're over there. So it's really fun. Day two, Daniel Bystead. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but you definitely know his work. He did the tiger. There's like a tiger demo for Eevee. There's a green creature. I think I have that thing. He made that. Yeah, Good Night Claire. He's done the most mind-blowing Eevee demos. And he's one of the people I really wanted to meet this year just to tell him how amazing his stuff was. He's such a nice guy. And we ended up talking a whole lot all the time, like over the whole conference. Really great guy. And his demo, if you like his work and you watch his talk, he'll give you all kinds of insight as to how he set everything up. His texturing stuff was awesome to watch. Like the way he'll use different maps, like to get, he has one map for the tiger of the real tiger pattern, right? Like the orange with black stripes. And then to get all those things flowing a certain way, all he did was make a new UV map and modify that where all the legs are all pointing the same way. And then that way, when you just run a texture through it, it just flows the right way down the leg. And it's simple things like that, but you're like, I probably wouldn't have thought of that. It's so great. I would have been struggling to animate some weird bendy texture or something. So yeah, his was really good. Definitely worth watching. He talks about like the pipeline that he uses at work and stuff like that. This is Alessandro. He makes a plugin called Tissue. Really nice guy. We talked a lot about it. Italian, so we also talked a lot about like pizzas and things. And we even went out to, you'll see pictures later of the last dinner on the last night was a pizza place or Italian. And he ordered a pizza and I was just like, I'm having what he's having. I'll trust whatever he's going to pick. I'll trust this. He's very not snobby, but really into pizza. Yeah.
Does he make the mesh tissue add-on?
Yeah, is it called mesh tissue? I think it's just called tissue, right?
It's called tissue.
Yeah.
It's the one that you go into the plugins and you click on it and does weird stuff.
It does really funky. It duplicates things over other things.
Yeah.
And like you watch his demo and you can see very easily how like if you just clicked one wrong thing, you would lock up your computer forever.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would be replicating some insane geometry over some other insane geometry. But it was a really cool plugin. He shows some really cool stuff. And he's like 3D printing walls and things like that, like really funky walls. Really cool. Gleb, of course, always does a great talk. His talk this year was amazing. And he works really hard at the presentation too. So his presentation was just awesome. Like zooming in, like the videos, the visuals were just amazing. This is what the room looked like. Just to give you an idea, I just kind of took a picture the whole way around. I should have done a panoramic, but whatever.
Did they sell out?
They did, I think. I'm pretty sure they did. This is just standing above everybody. This is Ton, Daniel Bystead. I can't remember his name. Hjalti, who's in Burbank actually now. A bunch of other folks. That's Ian down there who directed the Tears of Steel, the open visual effects movie. They did a few years back. He did. He opened the whole. He went right after. Yeah, he was great. Yeah, it was good. He moved really fast. It was really fun. This is Zacharias. I don't know if you guys know. He always does a lot of really good. I think his company's called CG Boost now. Yeah, he does some great stuff. Ton. They had an award. They won this Oob iWorks animation award, and they were inviting everybody to take pictures of it. And Ton was like, "Oh, hold it." And I'm like, "It's not my award. You hold it, and I'll just be in here with you." And he just kept making me hold it. So. Yeah, it was fun, and everybody did that for the whole thing, and then at the end he put them all up on the LED screen like just tiles and tiles. It was really fun. Hjalti always does great animation talks. If you're into animation at all, like his insights are just fascinating. And this one all concentrated on the hand. Yeah. And he literally had everybody in the audience is all like, what? Like you're looking at your hand, not noticing. Really strange, always really fun. Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. It's really insightful. And halfway through it, you realize like, holy cow, somebody analyzes this. Like he probably spent months sitting around like looking at everybody's hands and how people pick things up and how when they're not doing anything, what are their hands doing? Whew, it's fascinating. What did she do? She did something too. She does cars, right? Or CAD stuff. She did like 3D printing and CAD stuff, really good, fascinating. I tried to go into, this was the Metaballs talk. Alex, I think his name's Mikus, I think is his last name. Zugemeister is what he goes by online. Everybody knows him by. He always does, he kind of traditionally does a talk about Metaballs because I think a couple years ago, I don't know the whole details, but it seemed like Metaballs is like this unused thing that nobody ever touches. He kind of wanted to show some fresh angles on it. So he did a whole talk on it and was like building characters and texturing them with vertexes and animating them. And it was fascinating. He really made you like want to look at Metaballs again. So he did another talk and it was awesome. Then it was one of the side salons and it was packed, standing room only. I tried to get into the guy that's doing all the sculpting things, Pablo. I tried to get into his talk, but again, it was standing room only, packed. And it was very, I don't want to say coder centric. It was fascinating. I only stayed for like half of it. But he would say like, I'm going to show you how easy it was to make this tool. And then he would literally open up the code and be like, so this line does this. So it was a little much for me, but it was really fascinating. He's such a, like just this quiet guy, just like so unimposing, but just doing amazing things. Everybody I'm sure knows Jason, right? Is that, yeah. He runs Blender Artist, Jason Van Gumster, Twitter. He's been using Blender forever. And he was obviously giving a talk about things like how not to make feature requests and all that. But I thought, this slide says it all. Like, what else do you need? And then I put it on Twitter and tagged him in it like, this is what you think of it? Yeah, he's always fun. He does some really neat stuff. He does, he lives somewhere in the middle of the country, I think, like Oklahoma or something. He does on money, here in America, we just have a little strip that if you hold up the light, you see like 20 USA on it. But in other countries, they have a really cool, like holograms and they're clear plastic and they do things, much cooler money. And he does all those security things. So he uses Blender for building these like complex little 3D security things for money. And this year he brought a bunch of demo things and he pulled me aside and we were showing me all these just mind blowing. And like, it's another one of these things you're like, people use Blender for everything. Yeah, really fun. Her name, I can't remember her name, but she goes by the littlest dev. Her talk was awesome. She did a lightning talk at the end of the second day, yeah. They open up a slot for like 2 hours where people can get up and for 5 minutes you can show something or pitch something or talk about something, whatever you want. You got 5 minutes. And she did a talk all in poem and like performed it. It was amazing. And like when it first started, you're like, oh, this is interesting. It kind of rhymes. And then you're kind of getting into it. And by the end of it, there was just roars of applause. It was awesome. Really cool. So that was fun. And all those talks are really fun. There was sometimes this has happened at 2 conferences I went to where something will come up and everybody, the whole room can kind of read how bad it is and know that what this person made is horrible, but you don't want to say anything because it's whatever, they did something. But then the person's so enthusiastic about it that you just kind of like, you kind of get swept up, right? So there was a few years ago, there was a video in the Suzanne Awards that was just appalling. And when it started, we were all like looking at each other and we're like, I hope this isn't feature length. And we were just making jokes. We were all just laughing hysterically. And then there was another one in this talk about if you go watch the lightning talks, it comes up. something about a chicken. It's like some guy tried to make like a kung fu movie with chickens, and you know, he was so enthusiastic, and you could feel his passion, and you just get swept up to the point where when his 5 minutes were up and we were only halfway through the last movie, Oliver, who runs them, had to say like, I'm sorry, it's all online. Go look online." So it's really funny. But the lightning talks are worth a sit to. They're really fun. Oh, am I going late? Okay. Yeah. Ton giving the awards. He always gets people to give out different awards. Daniel Bystad gave out one. Ian gave out one. Somebody else gave out another one. There's always three. This was a big party they had where they always have like a big dinner, and it's always just loud and crazy and hot. But this one was fun because Mantissa, his name's Midge. He did all the visuals, and Andy does music sometimes. Andy Gralczyk at the Institute, he does music, and so they did this whole like audio visual, like kind of like a club thing. It was really fun. It was neat to see, and they were so nervous about it up until then, and it went great. It was really fun. But this is always fun, just hanging out, talking with everybody. This is the market in that same thing. Andy, this is I think the last day. I want to say it's the last day. Yes, he gave a whole talk on the production of Spring, which was great. He's one of the geniuses. I mean, they're all geniuses, but he's like, I do visual effects, so I'm all about simulations and smoke and particles, and he's like a master of that stuff. So all his stuff just always blows my mind. Oh, that's Jason. I took a picture of Jason, posted. Sebastian, I don't know if you guys know who Sebastian Koenig is. Great Blender user, really involved in like the compositing and tracking. He did a great VR thing that while I was watching the talk, it was interesting, but then later on he let me try it, and just mind blowing. So fun, really cool VR stuff. This was a guy doing Thomas, maybe. It's all online. Yeah, and it's like a horror game. It was really fun, really cool. The room he was in, it was like, I don't know, it felt like 100 degrees, but his talk was great, and his art and everything he's doing, it's all free. This was the end of it where Ton put up all those pictures and everybody stands up, applause. They also do, I kind of had those backwards, but they also do what's called an AMA, Ask Me Anything, where they bring all the developers up on stage and you get a couple hours to ask them anything you want, make feature requests, yell at them, whatever you want to do. And it's always really fun. And we had set up this thing, Sebastian, because I go there as a visual effects artist, and I'm always complaining, the compositor hasn't been touched since 2011, the tracking hasn't been updated since 2012. Like, I'm always complaining about that stuff. And they don't do many visual effects movies, so that's of course why there's a lagging behind. So there's a bunch of other people that want all that stuff kind of relooked at as well. So Sebastian got everybody, he was telling everybody for 2 days, going around telling everyone, at the AMA, I'm going to stand up and say something, and everybody just stand up and yell compositor. So at some point he did it, and everybody, the whole room was like, compositor, compositor, compositor. So we really got some attention going for that, which is really fun. I don't know if you want me to run through who all these people are, but yeah, we don't have time. But these are all the geniuses that make Blender. Sergey wasn't up there for some reason, so I got a picture of him later. For some reason, he was laying on the floor. I was still up in the balcony talking to people, and he was laying on the floor. I mean, I don't know what he was doing. They were decorating for Halloween. This is the traditional. They have this lighthouse that's kind of by where the old institute used to be, and it's like basically a bar. And it's traditional that they go there all the time and have drinks and all that. So that was just one time that we went there. We went there a couple nights, but you always got to get a picture of it. This was, I don't know, it's a little dark, but yeah, there was a push-up contest. Another guy had a like a 4-string guitar thing, and all of a sudden it got out of control. So it's very strange, but fun. I don't know. Oh, this is walking to the Institute. This kind of weird stuff you see. Streets of Amsterdam, funky houses, abandoned bike, more funky houses, beautiful stuff. You walk through this mall. There's this big like mall thing with like a walkways and a plus. I'm hurrying. And then you come out the other side. I thought you're coming up to like unplug me. You walk through this mall and you come out the other side of this walkway, and you notice that the glass windows start having the open movie posters in it. So you're like, oh, this is it, I guess. And sure enough, that's it. It's like 2 floors now. You can see Oscar over here taking a picture of some dude sitting down. This guy's doing a great project. I want to say his name's Christoph, and he's German, I think, or Austrian. Doing a great project where he had a class build all these like miniature little wooden huts and things, and they photographed them and took video, and now they're putting in like CG little fairies and elves and wood elves and things. Really cool stuff. Taking the pictures, people, staff on. This is before I got a tour. I was like, oh, I guess I can't go back there. This is one of the conference rooms there. Some of the art on the wall. When they let you into the institute on the last day, just look around. They don't hide anything, so I'm going to take pictures of everything.
Are they in the middle of the production right now?
They're not in the middle of one right now. No, they're still trying to get the Agent 327 thing off the ground, the feature length. And they did announce at the conference that they're going to do a part 2 of Cosmo's Laundromat. But as far as I know, that's all that's going on. There may be they always seem to have other things in the works, and then they don't announce it until it's a full go.
If they do Cosmos, they'll get more cloud stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe particle nodes for that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that's coming, I think, pretty soon anyway, regardless. Yeah. I want to say 282 it's coming, right? I think that's what they're trying to do. Should be Mantaflow and particle nodes. But this is just the institute. This is what it looks like. Everybody's sitting around. Really fun. I got some empty. There's Sergey. He didn't come out and talk to many people. Severin. This is the guy coding Mantaflow. His name's Sebastian. He's doing all the Mantaflow stuff. This was lunch. We all went to lunch. When I first got there, it was packed. It was just because there was 500 people at the conference, so all of them come to the institute on one day. So packed. There was a line out the door for the tours. They were like breaking people into groups and doing tours. So a bunch of us were like, let's just go to lunch. We'll get it later. So this is like it's me, John Denning from CG Cookie, Gleb, his wife. This is Captain Disillusion, or his intern Alan. This is 80, who's like Gleb and 80 are always doing the space VFX and all that stuff. I can't remember this dude's name, but he's great. He has some funky stories about like his dad working in film industry. Super nice guy. And then this is Lucas and Jonas, who do the November thing. This is the lunch where they came up with the whole November, or I actually was just tweeting them. They're like, hey, they're talking about us over at the LA Blender Meetup. And I'm like, I'm here now. I'm going to be showing the picture pretty soon. So, but yeah, and they may have had the idea before this. I don't know. But at this lunch is where they threw it out, and they bought the domain right there and started coming up with prompts and all that. So like, this is where November happened. The other end of the table was really fun. Yeah. We'll go quick, right? I think that's it, right? That's pretty much it. That thing, right? Somebody offered to print this for them. It's insane. Like they use textures on things. It's insane. All printed full color. Yeah, I think it's thousands of dollars. This was props from the visual effects movie. They've lined some parts of the institute with all the artwork, which is really cool. This is what their rooms look like. Francesco, exhausted. He does the whole conference. So he's up at CTN doing that conference right now. This is their balcony, not very fancy yet. Just more of the workstations. This is, oh God, how am I not remembering his name? Anyway, awesome dude, works at the Institute. Sam Vinhall. He invited me to a color meeting. Like you always get sucked into like meetings and things. Like we had me and Sergey and Sebastian and Ian had a little meeting about visual effects stuff. And then at another point, Sam here pulled me into a meeting for color stuff because color is a big part of visual effects pipelines and compositing and all that. And I'm the artist. I'm not the back end, so I understand the basics of it enough. Like, does it look right with the LUT? Does it look right without the LUT? Then I'm good. So I don't know the whole details of color things, and these guys do, and they want it to be right. So they invited me to this color meeting for Blender, and I kept telling them, like, this is all way over my head. And they're like, no, come. So I went. There was like Intel people there and stuff. I got like 5% of what happened in that meeting. But it was an honor to be invited. So Hjalti, they have a VR room, more spaces, blah, 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 workstations. That's Ton's office. And at the old institute, he didn't even really have an office. He had like the desk right where the stairs came up into the room. Strange, but now he's got this massive office. This was the last dinner. Everybody at this Italian place we always end up in. This guy's doing really cool stuff with animals. He did a talk. This guy's doing machine learning, neural network stuff. He didn't give a talk. He's given a talk to other years. I never remember his name. I talked to him.
Meetup day with us.
Yeah, totally. He's great. Yeah.
Historical stuff.
Yeah, he does really cool stuff. I always remember him as the hat maker because the first time I went to the conference, he did a talk on designing hats in Blender, and the whole conference he would wear like big funky hats. So to me, he was the guy with the little guitar when the people were doing push-ups. Interesting guy. Really fun. Everybody's so freaking nice. Figuring out like July, healthy, everybody's saying goodbye, blah, 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 John Denning, and that's it. Yeah, there you go. My job is done.
40 minutes.
Yeah. But it's
Awesome.
Was it 40 minutes?
It was 40 minutes.
No.
So, okay.
I thought it was going to be 10.
I want to present this to Gary. Gary, thank you. Thank you for the session earlier today. Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you pitching in. Unfortunately, we're out of time. The guy that has the room after us is like literally sitting on the floor outside.
Oh, gosh.
But we're going to Umami Burger, which is about a 6-minute walk from here. So we'll just, maybe you could be my Pied Piper.
Sure.
And, I'll start packing up here. But beers and burgers.
What's the inside of that to start parking?
Oh.
Probably gotta get a ticket, maybe.
I'm not sure. But drinks are on me at Umami Burger. So if you want to come and just have a free beer. And
I dropped Watch where you step. I dropped things.
oh no.
I put them in my pocket. I forgot there's a hole in my pocket.
All right, thanks everybody. That's a wrap. So thanks for joining if you came in online, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.
That's really cool. I need to head back to Glendale. So there was like a contact list.